On your Saturday episode of Locked On Raptors, yes, the Raptors badly need wings above all in this year's draft, but they could also use some guard play, and there are a handful of guards who will certainly be there if they keep their pick in the top six. But are any of them worth a reach? We'll get to it on today's show.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Saturday, May the 4th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the horrible, no good website that doesn't work at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. It's free. It's fun. It's a great place to come hang out with sickos just like you who love the Raptors, who love the podcast, who want to talk about other people who also love the Raptors and love the podcast. It's a great little family we got building around the show. Again, link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. Would love to see you in there as we lead up to the draft lottery next weekend and the draft after that. And obviously lots of commiseration about our pals OG and Pascal playing one another in the playoffs, decidedly not playing for the Toronto Raptors anymore. Would love to see you in the Discord. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. And you can find us on the YouTube side of things as well. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and get a push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live that says, hey, stop what you're doing. Sean's talking. And what better notification is there possibly than that? I think it's the only notification you could even set to have your phone send you, and you'd be happy if that were the case. Yeah, definitely. I'm not high on my own supply. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. And we will get started here talking about some draft dudes. Once again, it's been a draft heavy week on the podcast, but look, man, there are a lot of guys who are interesting for the Toronto Raptors, and we got to take advantage while there is still the fleeting hope that the Raptors will in fact have a top six pick to worry about, to talk about the guys who might be there in the top six for the Raptors. Of course, for those who are uninitiated, they owe a top six protected pick to the San Antonio Spurs for the Jacob trade, and the results of next weekend's draft lottery on Sunday, the 12th, will determine whether or not they keep that pick or convey it to San Antonio. A reminder for, again, the uninitiated, I am pro team convey. I think it is better for the long-term health of the franchise to get that pick off the docket now, send it to the Spurs in a draft that is not exactly loaded with no doubt talent up at the top, and just not ever think about it ever again. A clean slate, baby. That's what we want. But of course, there's a chance they will be picking in the top six. 37% chance they will be moving up in the draft at the top four. There's about a 10% chance they'll actually stay at number six, and then a 54% chance they will not have this pick whatsoever. Apologies for running through the grim numbers on that for those who already know it, but you don't want to assume that everyone knows the exact situation, because it feels like a real sicko thing to know the exact percentage of points of how this is all going to work for the Raptors around the lottery. Anyway, today, we spent a lot of this week talking about wings and potential guys the Raptors might be able to take in the top six. Today, we're going to switch our focus over to guards, who aren't exactly, I would say, the sort of strongest category of player in this draft. I actually think this is a wing draft, and I think that is music to my ears as someone who wants to see the Raptors use every single pick they have, be it two or three of them, on wing players, just to take as many shots at the hardest players to acquire in the NBA as you possibly can. But of course, we know from Masai Ujiri's end of season press conference that backup guard play is also a thing this team is looking to address this summer. And, you could do that via free agency, be it like a mid-level exception signing. Say you keep Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr., have the mid-level to work with. You want to go sign a guy, to be your backup point guard. Sure. Maybe you ask Bruce Brown to be your backup point guard. Maybe that's not the best idea in the world. Maybe you get cap space and throw a big bag at Tyus Jones to be your backup point guard. There are options here, but there is just the draft a guy and have him be your backup point guard of the future option as well. which could be a thing later in the draft. And a couple of the guys we'll talk about today could be there at number 19 if things break right on the board. But we'll get into 3 guys today who, if you were going to reach on a guard in the top 6, these are probably the 3 guys. Isaiah Collier out of USC, Jacobe Walter out of Baylor, and the final guy, Devin Carteer out of Providence, are the 3 guys we're going to cover on today's show. Let's kick it off with Isaiah Collier, shall we? 6'5" guard, played for USC this past season. Kind of a disastrous season for USC. A couple weeks ago, we had Richard Stamen from Locked On NBA Big Board on this show to talk about Collier a little bit. And he noted that, yeah, it was a pretty disappointing season for Collier. He was on many places, many boards, many prognosticators projected to be the number 1 pick in this year's draft, but a bad season at USC with a really bad team context and terrible spacing and general lack of cohesion had him fall down a lot of boards, well out of the top pick range, and certainly in some cases even out of the lottery. It does feel like he'll probably go in the lottery still. Right now, Ricky O'Donnell at SB Nation has him mocked at 10th overall, 11th at ESPN with Jonathan Givony and Draft Express, and then 16th on the Ringers board. That's kind of the read here on Isaiah Collier. Again, 6'5" guard. Don't know if he's fully 6'5". He looks more like 6'3", 6'4" to me, but he is built like a tank. He totally is, without a doubt, an NBA athlete at the guard position, which I don't think you can say for some of the guards that we've talked about previously. Reed Shepherd, for example, I have serious concerns about his size and overall athleticism. Rob Dillingham, the exact same thing. No such concern with Isaiah Collier, who is just an absolute beast of a man and a really impressive quick twitch athlete as well. That is the thing that gives you hope here for him. Really strong on drives, finishes through contact. Dudes just kind of bounce off of him. Really, really strong, sort of drive first point guard. 16 points, 3 boards, 4 assists on 49% from the field, 34% from deep, 67% at the line. Not great for USC this past season. You can forgive bad shooting and, tricky finishing in a bad team context. Free throws, a little concerning. You don't want to see that be too much of a continuing trend here. And I would say it's probably him and Nikola Topic who are the best dribble drive guards in this draft that I've seen so far. They do it in very different ways. Topic a little bit more sort of meandering and slithery. I think Collier is just kind of straight power. I think they do it pretty similarly. I think Topic actually finishes around the rim better than Collier, but it's pretty comparable between the two. They just get to that point differently, but it's similarly effective when it comes to drives. Transition is also a place where Collier really thrives, like just so fast, can just beat guys on the open court. And he kind of had to on USC because their half-court context was so gummy and crappy. So transition really had to be where he made a lot of his money. Or I guess, do you make money? I guess NIL? I don't know. What am I talking about? Either way, it's also worth noting, only 4 assists a game, probably muted a little bit because he played with a really not good supporting cast that wasn't finishing shots. He is the athleticism play at guard if you want to try to reach on someone, if in fact the Raptors stay in the top 6. They jump in the top 4. If you're taking a guard, it's probably Topic, honestly. I could hear the argument for Collier, I think, but I don't think I'm quite there. And we'll get into a couple reasons why that is. And for me, it's a fit thing. I continue to think that fit matters a ton for what the Raptors are going to do in this draft. And in theory, you're drafting someone here to complement Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley, who are the 2 pillars of this team going forward. Therefore, whoever you're drafting has to have some off-ball chops, and I'm just not sure that's something Isaiah Collier is bringing to the table coming out of college. Maybe it develops over time, but his three-point shot's been pretty rickety. Again, 34%. He had a really hot start to the season, then a massive midseason swoon where he was shooting sub 20% for a pretty extended stretch. And I'm just not sure that off-ball Isaiah Collier is really going to be able to do a whole lot for you with the current context of the Raptors. I want Immanuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes having the ball in their hands. And as much as Collier's driving is nice, I don't think his three-point shot's going to make teams worry. Like, I don't think you're going to have him play in 2 guard lineups with Quickley, for example, and have him play off ball and feel all that worried about, okay, it swings over to, Collier, and you don't think you're feeling good about his three-point shot going in right now. And I also don't think you're feeling all that worried if you're a defense, if you're kind of sagging off of him in any way. You have help at the rim. Yeah, his driving is effective, but if you're prepared for it and it's something that's happening off the ball, I'm just not totally sure that I see Collier fitting in alongside Quickley and Barnes like that. And, when you factor in as well, his defense seems like a bit of a mixed bag. He's strong, he's sturdy, he's got like tough hands, but he's also like not like the quickest side to side athlete or anything like that. He's not going to scale up and guard threes or anything like that either. Probably guard ones and twos, and that's about it. I don't know if his defense is something that is just like popping off the page to me to think, okay, like there's a clear fit with Quickley in backcourts going forward. I would much rather the backup point guard selection in this draft, not be a reach at number 6. We'll get to that a little bit later on as well when we talk about Devin Carter. But overall, I think just because of the limitations that Collier seems to have as an off-ball player, I don't quite love the fit with a pick as high as this. Look, if it happens that he slips to 19 and he's there, I think you take him and you laugh. That's incredible value for the overall sort of athletic talent that Isaiah Collier brings to the table. But as far as a fit with Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley, I think if you reach for him at 6, well ahead of where most scouting experts have him mocked, I think that would be a bit of a misuse of what is ostensibly a prime pick, even though it's not all that impressive of a top end of this draft. And so, this is also a situation where if you were to trade back into that sort of late lottery range, maybe that's a guy that you're happy to take. And he can be your backup point guard for the next little while here as he figures out the rest of his game. But I still think I'm just so much in favor of taking wings over anything else in the upper reaches of this draft if the Raptors are there, that I think at 6, there are just going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 different guys who I'd rather the Raptors take there, who address that need on the wings a little bit more than Isaiah Collier is addressing a need, which is a need, right? Like the Raptors need backup guard play. There's no doubt. But I think you can address that in other ways that doesn't use your highest pick in the draft, and the highest pick that I think they hope to have for quite some time as well. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into Jacobe Walter, who is a fascinating player. I really want to like him. I'm not sure how much I'm there just yet. Maybe I'll have myself convinced by the time the draft comes around. He seems like someone who will probably oscillate in my opinions between now and the draft. We'll talk about Jacobe Walter out of Baylor coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. And look, Mother's Day is coming up, and maybe you're like me. You live a little bit further away from your mom than you'd like to. You can't see her on Mother's Day. That's okay. This Mother's Day, you can get something thoughtful for mom on DoorDash and let her know you're thinking about her. Surprise her from wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech, gift cards, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. I can't see my mom all the time. She lives out in the boonies and she's very happy living her country living life, but can't get to see her on this Mother's Day. But that's okay because DoorDash is there for me. It has been in the past as well. I've done this with DoorDash before, sending her her favorite meals, sending her some flowers. It's a lovely little way, a little hack of the modern world to be able to think about my mom. Sure, I'm thinking about her on Mother's Day when I'm not able to see her. Does mom got a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more. My mom loves to paint. Maybe I'll send her some painting materials so she can work in her little art shop out in the country and have a little lovely Mother's Day painting session. Get a Mother's Day gift as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA to get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. All right, back at it, talking guards here on the podcast. Again, not exactly my personal flavor with the top 6 pick if the Raptors do, in fact, keep it, but certainly some interesting players in this guard class. And that's sort of mocked in the late lottery, sort of mid first round area that, again, when it comes to like reaching, just like a quick thought on reaching in this draft, I do think we're probably going to see a lot of teams, quote unquote, reach for guys who have been sort of projected to go a little bit lower. Just because I think because this draft figures as a role player draft more than anything else, and because fit is so essential to making role players sing, that every team is going to have a best player available that is different from others at various times while this board develops over the course of the night on the draft. Like I just think every team's going to have their own little holes they're looking to fill. There are different, certain types and niches and skills they need to complement their current rosters. And I do think that that's going to lead to some interesting selections. And also, we know the Raptors have no qualms about taking guys that are projected a little bit lower than they're projected. Think about Pascal Siakam taken 27th when most people had him undrafted. Think about Bruno Caboclo, 2 years away from being 2 years away. All of that grainy Brazilian footage being the only thing to go off of there. Scottie Barnes took him 4th overall when a lot of people thought he was going to be 5th, 6th, 7th in that year's draft. They don't care about consensus. They will take whomever they want to take, who they think they can mold into the player they need. And so I don't think it's out of the question that they could go and have some sort of, surprise reach at a guy at 6 who maybe is projected 12th, 14th, whatever, if that's the sort of what they want to do and how they're feeling on draft night. I don't expect it's really going to happen with a guard, but a couple of guys do fit the bill of someone who they might go and reach on. We talked about Isaiah Collier. Let's get to Jacobe Walter, 6'5", small shooting guard, small forward type out of Baylor, 6'9" wingspan, currently mocked 11th on the Ringer, 18th at Ricky O'Donnell's mock at SB Nation, 12th at ESPN. Pretty rough shooting splits for him this season, which kind of goes against the conventional wisdom on him, which is he might end up being one of the best, if not the best shooters in this draft. Shot just 34% from 3 this season at Baylor. But we talked a couple weeks ago with our pal Rich Thaman, I believe, just sort of about the strange context he played within at Baylor. And you can't really take too much of just like the raw 3-point shooting. It's way more about the mechanics and his career shooting in high school and stuff like that informs the belief that he is going to be like a knockdown type of shooter. He shot just 29% against conference opponents this season. It's like not terribly encouraging, but I think overall, if you look at the sort of general look of his shot, the way he started this season, where he was blistering hot for the first stretch of the season, I think it's pretty fair to say that even if he's not going to be like the best shooter in the draft, like a Reed Shepherd level shooter, there's a good shooter in here somewhere with Jacobe Walter. The other thing I really like about this guy is he just seems like a winning type of player, a little things guy, a guy who's going to like fall to the deck to pick up loose balls, a guy who's going to defend like a maniac and, scowl at guys that he's just locked down. The kind of guy that I think the Raptors need, like a bit of an MFer, if you will. That kind of seems to be the sort of role that Jacobe Walter figures to fill in the NBA. And that's very exciting. I think with his 3-point shooting, with some of the defensive tools he has, like there is a nice fit within the Raptors here somewhere where, of course, they need defensive chops. They need 3-point shooting because every team needs 3-point shooting. They need size. He's only 6'5", but he's got a big, long wingspan. I think he plays bigger than 6'5", probably figures to guard 1s, 2s, and 3s in the NBA. Maybe slides out of the odd 4 here and there in switching situations. But I just, there's a lot here that kind of screams really nice role player with Jacobe Walter. He leans a lot on his jump shot for shooting. Shot just 42% on his 2s this season. Like he really leans on that jumper, the 3-point shot, pull-up mid-rangers, things like that. He's not getting to the rim a ton. And self-creation is probably not something he's really ever going to bring, and is probably the reason why you don't take him at number 6 in a reach. I think, again, he's kind of the guy maybe you trade back for if you're, if you jump up in the lottery, you want to trade back and get a couple extra picks, maybe one this year, one next year, that type of thing. In that 10, 11, 12, 13 range, certainly you'd be totally fine taking Jacobe Walter there. But at 6, I don't think there's enough potential creation there to feel super great about taking him that high. He can't really shake. There's not a lot of shake to his game. He has like a lot of movement when he's trying to break guys down, like a lot of sort of back and forth, big swing dribbles, things like that. But he doesn't seem to get much out of it. It's like theatrics without much in terms of payoff, and he can't quite shake guys terribly easily. Not a very good playmaker, but he's also not like a black hole guy. Like he's looking to make connective plays. I think he would fit nicely in a Darko Rajakovic system, but he's not necessarily, creating from a standstill for others or himself. Again, doesn't have to be a problem on this Raptors team, right? And I think taken later in the draft, if he's there at 19, for example, you're totally happy if Jacobe Walter's the pick. But I am a little bit concerned about the creation upside. And Is he worth a pick that high, considering that he's only 6'5"? He doesn't, check the box of moving RJ Barrett to the 2, to repeat myself for the thousandth time, talking about what I would love for the Raptors to get in this year's draft is guys who can help make RJ Barrett a long-term 2 as opposed to a 3 with his defensive issues that he really, really struggled with this season. I'm not sure Walter at his size really does that. Like, you'd be rolling out small lineups if it's Quickley, Walter in your backcourt, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle. Like, it doesn't seem small, but in today's NBA, like, everyone's getting bigger, and you got to sort of draft for size. I think that's really kind of paramount right now, and I don't know if Jacobe Walter really checks that box. There's also no sure thing he's going to be like a lockdown defender. He seems to really want to be a lockdown defender. He's got two things. He's got tools, like he's got the 6'9" wingspan at 6'5". He's very athletic, and he's got like insanely high effort. Like, those are two really nice boxes to check when you're thinking about projecting a defensive player. The execution at like keeping dudes in front of him, not quite there. Very similar, I think, to how he operates on offense, where there's a lot of movement in the way he's trying to break guys down. It's not really, actually bearing much fruit. There's a lot of activity to his defensive footwork, but it kind of gets him crossed up and sort of in bad position. I think if he could kind of like control himself a little bit more and just have like a less noisy body as he's moving and defending, I think that could actually really help him go a long way to being a pretty damn good on-ball defensive stopper type, but it's not there yet. There's a lot of work to be done there when it comes to refining that sort of defensive footwork and just sort of defensive control, at least from what I've seen. Again, another caveat for these draft episodes, I'm an idiot compared to most of the scouting people out there. I'm going off of what I can see and the opinions of people I respect and sort of synthesizing what they're all saying and putting into my own takes. I could be totally wrong on this, but just based on what I've seen with Walter, that's kind of my read on his defense. But I would totally bet on him being a plus defender, I think, just because of the tools and because of the effort always being there, and because he's like a little things guy who likes to do the small things to kind of put your team ahead with little winning plays here and there. I feel like he's like fan favorite material is Jacobe Walter. Do you draft a fan favorite at number 6? Probably not. But again, you trade back a little bit into the late lottery. You have him fall to you at 19. I would not have a problem if Jacobe Walter was on the Toronto Raptors going into next season. I just think I'd be mildly disappointed if he were the pick at number 6, given the options that are surely going to be there if the Raptors pick there, or of course they're in the top 4. If they're in the top 4, like, it's not a chance. I don't think Walter's going that high. I think Collier's going that high. I don't think the next guy we're going to talk about is going that high. And it becomes a bit of a different conversation. Again, we are operating within a world right now in draft lottery limbo, thanks Masai and Bobby, trying to decide what the hell the Raptors are going to do here in the world which they keep pick number 6, which is where they currently sit. It's very likely not to be the reality 9 days from now when the lottery goes down, but that's what it is for now. So let us live in the fantasy land while we can. We got content to make, man. I got to do it while I can. Either way, yeah, not super thrilled about Jacobe Walter if he was going to be a reach, but I think there's a reason to feel all right if he's on the Raptors as like a long-term sort of glue guy everybody loves, guy who makes winning plays, guys who does the dirty little things sort of in the gaps of the game that make it easier to win basketball games. You could do a lot worse than Jacobe Walter, I think. We'll come back on the other side, talk about a guy who I think very much fits that bill as well and has just like a pretty fascinating package of skills and limitations and sort of swing skills. And that is Devin Carteer, the kind of a riser, I would say, of late out of Providence, the point guard, 2 guard, whatever he might be. We'll talk about him and his bizarro jump shot coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in North America. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can't beat it. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Of course, the NBA playoffs, always a fun place to go and throw some money down. I won money last year betting on the Denver Nuggets to win the NBA championship. And then I think in the second round, might have been after game 1 of the second round, I bet on the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets to be the NBA Finals when the Nuggets to win. And I made some scratch on that as well. If you feel like you're a genius who knows what's going to happen in the NBA playoffs, now is your time to go shine over at FanDuel with those $150 in bonus bets with one win or lose bet. It's that simple. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, rounding out the week here on the podcast with another guard who could be there or almost certainly will be there if the Raptors keep their pick at number 6 or jump up into the top 4. Probably not worth reaching on, but I think worth talking about because he's a fascinating player and does a lot of things that, basketball fans really like seeing guys on their basketball team do. That is Devin Carter, 6'3" guard out of Providence. He is 22 years old. He's been around, veteran guy, that type of thing. 17th in ESPN's mock right now, 14th for Ricky O'Donnell, and 14th at the Ringer. So not quite in that range at number 6. Again, I'm sure we'll see some reaches just because the sort of personal flavor and, eye of the beholder stuff in this year's draft, I think will be pretty prominent compared to other years' drafts where I think the sort of talent near the top is just so much more undeniable, less so this season. But Devin Carter really shot up boards this season with a fantastic season at Providence. 19.7 points a game, 8.7 boards for a 6'3" guard. Pretty nutty. 3.6 assists on 47% from the field, 37% from deep on insane volume, 7.3 attempts a game from Devin Carter, 37% clip, 75% from the line, shot 56% on his twos. Seems like an extremely easy dude to love and want to root for if he's on your basketball team. And the big story for him this year was a massive jump in his three-point output. Previous seasons, he played at South Carolina for 1 year, and then a year at Providence before this season as well. So 2 years at Providence, and was not a good three-point shooter at all. 30% range in the first couple seasons of his college career. Makes a big-time jump up to 37%, again, on 7.3 attempts per game. Super high volume. Did it both as a catch-and-shoot and movement guy. But the thing with his jump shot, it's hard to really parse because it's a weird-ass jump shot. If you see it, there's like a full-on hitch to it. It takes a little bit of time to load up. It does not look like your classic. Think of Grady Dick, for example. You look at Grady Dick's jump shot, it's like, oh, that's a jump shot. That is a jump shot out of a textbook. Klay Thompson, okay, that is what a jump shot is supposed to look like. Devin Carter's jump shot, the exact opposite of that. Is kind of whack, but it worked this year really well. And so you have to take that for what it's worth. I do think there's maybe some concern that it's not going to translate to the same degree that it did in college. Again, 37% is nice. It's again, on high volume, you'll take that, but is it going to be 37% when it's against closing out NBA defenses and NBA athletes? I'm thinking about like Jaden McDaniels bearing down on Devin Carter as he's loading up this bizarro jump shot. Is that going to be enough time to get that off against the best defenders on the planet? I think that's a genuine concern. And I don't think he features a whole lot as like a pull-up three-point shooting guy. And I love a pull-up three-point shooting guy. I think pull-up three-point shooters are basically the straw that stirs the drink of most NBA offenses these days. Think of Jalen Brunson. Think of Tyrese Maxey. Devin Carter, those guys, he is not. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think, the jumper still, again, it went down a whole bunch. There's also, like, if you look at his misses, there are some pretty bad misses in there. It's kind of an all-or-nothing jump shot for him. It's just like a weird jumper. So if you can get past that, then you might really, really like yourself some Devin Carter. Because, look, man, talked in the last segment about Jacobe Walter being a bit of an MFer. Devin Carter, also a bit of an MFer. Feels like your classic high-energy backup point guard who just, like, everyone adores, comes in and absolutely just, like, changes games with his energy, with his defense, with his, like, scowling, all of that. And it's maybe not terribly surprising considering he is the son of Anthony Carter, one of the sort of faces of mid-2000s competent backup point guards, a classic guy you pick up on free agency and NBA Live 07 to fill out your roster when you've spent too much money at the top of your lineup. That's what you're talking about here. Is the son of a like store brand backup point guard. That feels like a pretty good thing for like projecting his future. There's nothing wrong with a highly competent backup point guard. In fact, the Raptors seem to really want one of those guys this offseason. This could be a way that they address it. Some other things to kind of note. Again, the rebounding is ridiculous. 8.7 boards a game at 6'3". Pretty nuts. Speaks to the motor, speaks to the high IQ, speaks to just sort of constantly kind of being mixed up in everything that's going on. Shot 65% at the rim as well. He's got a bunch of pretty fun, creative finishes. Very similar, I think. I talked about yesterday, Cody Williams on Colorado, the wing. Obviously very different players, but similar kind of bag of fun, creative finishes around the rim. Gets to the line a ton, 5 free throws a game, and absolutely would fit the transition ethos of the Raptors as well. Loves to run the floor, loves to finish on the run, loves to burn guys in the open court. Super duper fun. I really like this player quite a bit, even if I don't think he's close to being worth using a top 6 pick on. Devin Carter is still super duper fun. Fine-ish passer, certainly not incredible. Kind of does the baseline reads, typical drive and kick stuff. He's not going to make those high-level, off the dribble, live dribble, skip passes to the weak side corner or anything like that. But he is going to be a perfectly cromulent backup point guard. And when it comes to kind of guiding your offense and on defense, I mean, this is the thing for him. This is the thing that makes him a really, really exciting prospect. Is he is an absolute maniac defender. He's 6'3". He can probably guard up to threes and maybe even some fours and just be kind of a pain in the ass for anyone. I envision him being one of those Kyle Lowry-esque incredible post defenders, despite being small, just really nasty to try to go in and back down. And he's kind of constantly reaching at you and trying to poke the ball free and stuff like that. Really strong center of gravity, that type of thing. I think there's just like a lot of Devin Carter stuff that's really fun here. Could certainly run him in like 2-guard looks with Immanuel Quickley because of that, scaling up the defensive spectrum. If the shot can fall at least, and then that's like a whole new game changer. Those could be really fun, nasty 2-guard lineups to play against. Again, I'm not reaching for Devin Carter at number 6. That feels kind of crazy to do for a guy who I think his most likely outcome is like one of the best backup point guards in the NBA. That's certainly on the table for him. But I don't think you can really do it and say, hey, like this is a good use of the 6th overall pick. You're hoping for better than high-end backup point guard when you draft there. That said, if he's there at 19, he feels like a dude you could happily take and feel very good about that being the way that you address your backup point guard situation this summer. Certainly be more cost effective than going and splurging on a Tyus Jones or any of the other higher end backup point guard types who are out there. He's 22 years old. He's probably ready more than most backup guards would be, more than most rookie guards would be to kind of step in and contribute. Maybe not as a rookie, because it's hard for any rookie to be successful, especially as a guard. But over the course of the next couple of seasons, I think you could certainly see Devin Carter, because of his defense, because of his finishing, and hopefully because of the shot, fitting into being just like a really, really nice role player for the Raptors going forward. You got to have role players, man. Devin Carter feels like he's going to be exactly that for whichever team drafts him. Again, wouldn't do it at 6, but again, the situation where you trade back, like we talked about with Collier and Walter, I'm going to keep on hammering the trading back is totally fine in this draft. Sort of bell over the course of the next little while here, especially if they jump up to 2, 3, or 4 in a draft where I feel like there's one no-brainer guy and the rest are kind of, we'll see. And so if you're there in that late lottery area, totally, Devin Carter would not be upset if he's the pick there. Would be upset if he's taken at 6. I think it'd be pretty shocking if he was taken at 6, frankly, or in the top 10 by anybody. But yeah, late lottery if you trade back, or if he's there at 19, you could do a lot worse than a guy who I think is probably going to end up being a very long time, excellent backup point guard. And if the 3-point shot falls, there's maybe a little bit more upside than that. So we'll leave it there. That's it for this collection of guard guys. We will get into some more wings next week. We'll also talk about the actual Raptors a little bit more, get back to kind of evaluating the season that was, things we're looking forward to this offseason, dream offseason scenarios and all of that. But yeah, I kind of got into draft mode this week and I had a lot of fun with it. So hopefully you've enjoyed these episodes this week. Lots of stuff on lots of guys. Cody Williams yesterday, talked about Dalton Connect yesterday as well. earlier in the week, breakdowns of all kinds of wings, guards, et cetera, ranking in that top 6 range. Again, we'll see. We have 5 more episodes worth of not knowing where the Raptors are going to pick, if anywhere in the top 6. And we'll obviously adapt our coverage accordingly after that has taken place with the lottery on May the 12th. But all next week, talking draft, talking where the Raptors sit, talking the stakes at the lottery, keep versus not keep and all that stuff, keep versus convey. It'll be a loaded week on the show, a pivotal week for the Raptors, and we will have it all covered for you here on the show. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and supporting the show, whichever way you do it, following, subscribing, rating, reviewing, telling your friends, etc., etc. I love you very, very much. We will talk to you again on Monday, another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.